Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video of the Module 2.2 series Supply Chain Management. For this video, we will first tackle what Supply Chain Management or SCM is before we get into the information systems that support supply chain management. To get started with supply chain management, what first is a supply chain? The supply chain follows the procurement of the inventory of your raw materials or goods to its transformation up until you get the goods to the consumer and also handles their returns. Here are its parts. You start with procurement or the buying of raw materials, then inbound logistics to get it to the warehouse or factory, including the storage of these raw materials. And in operations, the raw material is transformed into a product of more value. Then outbound logistics is getting the transformed products to stores and retailers and to the consumer. Then last, you handle the returns of your consumers. Here are the players of a standard supply chain. You have the manufacturer, the one who transforms the product. Then the products are sent to the distributor, who then sends it to the retailers. So okay, you follow the flow. You have the manufacturer making your products, your goods, who sends it to the distributor, then to the wholesaler. The wholesaler then sends it to the retailers. The retailers are usually where we get our products from. These are your markets, sari-sari stores, and drug stores. And the consumers, of course, are us who buy these products. Moving on to supply chain management, it refers to the strategies that optimize the flow of products and services from their source to the customer. So, the supply chain management basically is how you optimize the flow from procurement up until the returns. Also, you optimize the flow from the manufacturer to the consumer. Depending on your type of business, this chain can stretch from your suppliers all the way to your customers. The ultimate goal of a supply chain management is to align supply with demand so that the right product is delivered to the right place at just the right time and at the right price. The Supply Chain Operations Reference or SCOR model illustrates 5 processes that underlie successful management of a next generation supply chain. It involves planning, sourcing, making, delivering, and handles the returns. So with that, let's start off with planning. Planning with the goal of building a fleet-footed working supply chain that aligns with actual business goals. Okay, that is where you start your supply chain. For example, if the strategy calls for a low-cost leadership, the company will favor cost efficiencies for transportation and inventory and storage. An example of this is the low-cost leadership planning by IKEA. IKEA emphasizes low prices by shipping flat boxes containing furniture parts rather than bulky, fully assembled bookcases or tables. They also quote-unquote fool their consumers in a way they let the consumers actually build and set up the furnitures. Not only do they save on cost and space on boxes, but also save on assembly costs of employees. Right, so if you've ever heard of IKEA or been to IKEA or seen IKEA on TV or any media, right, what they do is they actually make the consumer assemble their products, assemble their furniture. And the consumer will actually take it. They somewhat have this sense of accomplishment when they're able to fully, assemble their IKEA. But on IKEA's point of view, right, they're able to save costs on shipping the boxes that they use and assembly. Moving on to source. In source, managers then make decisions about where would they get their materials, right, and which suppliers to use. Again, if the business strategy should guide many choices. Okay, your business strategy should guide most of your choices, such as whether to commit to long-term contracts or encourage frequent and fierce competition among your potential suppliers. An example of this is Apple and IKEA. According to Fortune.com, Apple admits breaking Chinese labor laws in the world's largest iPhone factory in China. Apple Incorporated and manufacturing partner Foxconn violated a Chinese labor rule by using too many temporary staff in the world's largest iPhone factory. The companies confirmed following a report that also alleged harsh working conditions. Right? With these issues, This may cause consumers, such as us, to boycott and stop supporting Apple products because they have confirmed to these poor working conditions in their sources. On the other hand, according to IKEA, they only use sustainable wood for their products. They work together with FSC, or the Forest Stewardship Council, to take care of the world's forests. And with this, consumers may be encouraged to buy IKEA products knowing that they will not be guilty when purchasing furniture. Next is the make process. This step transforms the resources into something with more value. Supply chain managers track inventory at each stage, fine-tuning the flow so that some parts don't run short while others aren't overstocked. Next is delivery. This is the part where products are transported to distribution centers and retailers. It is to note here that managers' keen interest in inventory levels continues through the delivery step, as products are transported to distribution centers and retailers. And finally, returns. The supply chain management processes the returns by the customers. So it's upon you to install rules, or it's upon the company's rules, right, to determine whether all their sales would be final or they would be accepting returns and exchanges. Next up is the measurement of performance of a supply chain. So how do we actually measure the performance of a supply chain? Accurate and well-chosen metrics tell how well a supply chain decision is working. So first up, we have visibility. Visibility describes how easily managers can track timely and accurate supply chain metrics. The manager should know or should have visibility or knowledge on where the inventory are at a given time, which player is the inventory with, and how much stocks does each player in the supply chain have. By having knowledge on this, then the manager would know when and where to send the materials. Though visibility is important, some data are hard to get. Some data are housed by a customer or supplier and they are not willing to share these data, and some data are actually not tracked, such as the case in some sari-sari stores where they do not record their inventories. Another metric to track is DFA, or Demand Forecast Accuracy. It is the difference between forecasted and actual demand. When you are selling goods, it is always bad to overstock or understock. Understocking means loss of sales, right? Lost opportunities. You're not able to sell your product to your customer, which leads to reduced revenue. Overstocking, however, leads to higher inventory costs. So having the correct amount of inventory is important or is a must when selling goods. Next, in the supply chain, related with demand forecasting, we have this phenomenon called the bullwhip effect. It is a distortion in the supply chain caused by changes in customer demand as the orders ripple upstream from the retailers, wholesalers, distributors, and manufacturers. The bullwhip effect happens because of misguided forecasting, because of changes in demand by the customer, which will lead to understocking of the players of the supply chain up until the overstocking of the players to make up for their understocking. Here, for example, it looks like a bullwhip, right? For example, small fluctuations in retail sales trigger large swings in inventory levels as the retailer sends orders to the distributor to replenish the stock. And the distributor follows up with orders that soon reach the manufacturer. So in effect, the manufacturer will make more materials, will send it down because of the inaccurate forecasting that happened. So that is supply chain management. Before we end the lesson on supply chain management, we have two great examples or two great cases of successful supply chain management. First up is Walmart. Walmart is a supermarket in the United States. They adopted cross-docking, in which goods are unloaded directly from rail cars or trucks and immediately packed into smaller trucks ready to head for retailers. This means that no warehousing is needed and software synchronizes the timing and logistics. So what they did is Instead of keeping it in their warehouses, they just immediately shipped it to their retail stores so that they would not have to pay for inventory stocking, right? Next up is Dell. Dell is a computer technology company. So what they did is, while other manufacturers, like other computer technology companies like Asus or Acer, right, they built several models, shipping them first to distributors and then the retailers. Dell actually removed or eschewed the middlemen. A buyer customizes and orders a Dell PC online and then tracks the order until it arrives at the front door, shipped directly from the manufacturer. Dell synchronizes the delivery so all the hardware arrives at the same time. So what they did is, that's actually one way to improve a supply chain, is to remove the middlemen. Well, middlemen are important because they are the ones that bring the materials to the retailers, right, or to the consumers as well. But if you're able to remove them, like just from the like here, if you're able to remove the middlemen, just get from the manufacturer, give it to your consumer, or the manufacturer give it to your retailer, then you would have better visibility, right? Because you're not keeping track of all the players of the supply chain. You don't have to keep track of your distributor. You don't have to keep track of your wholesaler. What you're just doing is you're keeping track of your products. Just ship them directly to the retailers or your consumers. So that is what Dell did. Okay, now let's move on. Now knowing about supply chain management, there are information systems to assist us with this. Supply chain management software evolved as specialized tools and applications often developed to address one aspect of supply chain in a single industry. For example, supply chain management software might include the following. You have your supply chain planning software to predict demand, synchronize with supply, and optimize the whole network. Warehouse management software, or WMS, to manage and optimize inventory, space allocation, shipments, cross-docking, and other warehouse activities. You have transportation management software to optimize shipping, logistics, and fleet routing and scheduling. Oops, sorry. You have transportation management software. Next, you have manufacturing execution system to manage activities and flow through the manufacturing process. And last, you have your global trade management software to ensure compliance for cross-border transactions for importers and exporters. These are the modules included in a supply chain management information system. So they are all different from each other, right? Making all these specialized software applications work together is actually very challenging. But managers need a clear end-to-end picture of supply chain performance. Increasingly, vendors are building software that combines several SCM applications that share data. So, as you can see, like each of these software technologies, right? Each of these modules or systems have their own specific functions. And so they each keep track of different data. So integrating them together would be very hard. But if you're able to integrate them, right? If you're able to align all the data together and make them work correctly, then it would reap great results for the company or the ones using it. So it's the same case with your finance and asset management software and also your human capital management software, right? If you're able to integrate information system technologies together, then it would reap great results because all the data is synced together, so there will be less inconsistencies when handling your data. Moving on to collaboration and sensing. The secret to excellence in supply chain management is collaboration, internally among units and externally with your partners, suppliers, and your customers. Firms develop automated bridges to connect their information systems and share data relevant to the supply chain. So if you're able to share your data with all the players of the supply chain, like you know how much stocks that they have, you know how much they need, you're able to forecast the following week's demand, then you are able to smoothly run your supply chain. Next is EDI, Electronic Data Interchange. We have it on a separate slide over here. Uh, EDI is to transmit information about orders, invoices, and other data electronically between partners in a supply chain. So that is how you actually share your data internally and externally through electronic data exchange, interchange, or EDI. See, so it improves visibility, and private networks or proprietary software is available for these types of data sharing. Next up are your electronic markets. A more recent way to share information now is through electronic markets, relying on the internet's inexpensive communications and open standards for defining data. Next up, let's tackle sensing. Supply chains benefit from sensing technologies that improve visibility during transit and in storage. Commercial shippers use handheld wireless scanners to read barcodes on packages and upload the tracking number, date, time, and place. When RFID or radio frequency identification chips are attached to these packages, the chips transmit their own data as they pass by readers throughout the supply chain at seaports, railway stations, and warehouses. Next is global positioning systems. GPS are a critical feature of navigation and transportation systems. These devices receive signals from orbiting satellites that transmit time and location data, sort of like how we use Waze or Google Maps that use GPS. Location is accurate within a few meters. GPS devices help drivers navigate to their destinations and keep managers apprised of their fleets. So, not only does GPS help in getting the drivers to their destinations, but they also help managers keep track of where the inventories are. And with that ends our lesson on supply chain management. Tune into the next video on customer relationship management systems. And that's all, and see you then.